Good afternoon. I'm Mike Kallstrom, and I'm co-chairman of the City Club's Special Programs Committee. Welcome to the second of 3 programs on water, our region's biggest asset. Water was at the center of our region's development even before Europeans settled here. It could be said that it's been a primary contributor to our success. However, we've not always been good stewards of this important resource. Significant water pollution problems due to incomplete wastewater treatment and poor watershed management practices were identified in the middle of the last century. Since then, local, state, and federal resources have been invested to restore and sustain our regional ground and surface water system. These investments in capital, and I might add considerable professional effort, have been responsible for improving water quality, restoring aquatic habitat, protecting public health, and increasing recreational opportunities in our lakes and rivers. However, the effort must be sustained and even expanded to include broader issues such as stormwater management. The moderator for today's program is Gretchen Cuda, science and medical reporter for WCPN ideastream. Gretchen has been writing stories about science, technology, medicine, and environmental issues since 2003, when she left a career in medical research and became a full-time member of the press. Gretchen joined ideastream in July of 2007 as a producer for the morning radio talk show Sound of Ideas, and became the station's science and medical reporter in May of 2008. She's previously worked as an assistant producer for a radio program called Science Today, a science writing instructor at Lawrence Berkeley National Labs, and a full-time neurophysiology research associate at the University of California, San Francisco, and Renovus, Inc. Her work has appeared in a variety of national publications, including Wired News, Nature Medicine, the Science section of the New York Times, and National Public Radio. She holds a bachelor's and master's degree in biomedical engineering from Boston University and a master's degree in broadcast and investigative journalism from Columbia University in New York. I expect our speakers may need to be well prepared. Gretchen?
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here and get a nice compliment like that. I wanted to maybe start by reminding you all about something that happened last December. If you remember, last December, for many people who lived in Cleveland, you may have woken up, stumbled groggily to your shower, turned on the tap, and gotten nothing. A massive water main break at East 40th and Hamilton at 7 a.m. that morning left lots of Cleveland residents without water for most of the day, but the effects went beyond the slightly disheveled, unshowered, and perhaps less than fresh workforce that day. What really hit home, many businesses actually who depended on that water had to close. The Great Lakes Science Center was closed. Cuyahoga County Juvenile Court closed. Cleveland State University closed. And Metro Health Medical Center even had to close its emergency department for lack of water. But what really hit home for a lot of people, especially for any of you who work downtown, was that Starbucks closed. So no one could get coffee, actually, for 2 days. And I can say that because of that boil alert, I recall that the less than favored company coffee was even off limits, which left a lot of us without lunch and without caffeine and a little bit grumpy. So even though these things are just minor inconveniences in the grand scheme of things, I think that what it does is underscore the importance of how much we rely on water every day to do our everyday things. And what a precious resource it is, how much we take for granted the fact that every time we turn on the tap, we get clean water that we can drink, that we can cook with, and that we can bathe in. And perhaps something that we take even more for granted is the fact that when we flush the toilet, our waste products are scurried away, and we never have to think about where they go. Well, some people here do think about it, and they're going to talk to us a little bit about that. But before we do, here's a few facts that I think are important. Less than 1% of all the surface water on Earth is potable fresh water. And here in Northeast Ohio, we're really quite lucky because the Great Lakes holds 18% of the world's fresh water. And that's lucky for us because in Ohio, it's estimated that each of us consumes 75 gallons of water for regular domestic use, just alone. That's not including what the businesses and industry uses, which increases that number quite a lot. So today we're here to talk about clean water, how it gets to us, what happens to us when it flows through our pipes, is flushed down our toilets, or fills our storm drains. And I have two experts here who are gladly going to tell you all about the details. The first is Julius Ciaccia, who is directly to my left. He's the executive director of the Northeast Ohio Regional Sewer District. Mr. Ciaccia has a long history working with water. He began actually as acting water commissioner in 1979, then became the assistant to the water commissioner in 1981, and finally water commissioner in 1988. He then became the director of the city's Department of Public Utilities in 2004 and has been the Regional Sewer District Executive Director since 2007. Next to him is Chris Korleski, who has a bachelor's and master's degree in agronomy, which I have recently learned is the study of soil. He also has a law degree from Ohio State University and has worked for years and years. As he told me over lunch, he has been in love with environmental issues and working with them since he was a teenager. But he has worked as an assistant attorney general in the Ohio Environmental Enforcement Section, where he supervised the Attorney General's Clean Air Enforcement Program, as well as counseling and representing the EPA in matters including air pollution, water pollution, and hazardous waste. Following that, he then later advised Honda of America in the areas of environmental safety, and today he is the director of the Ohio Environmental Protection Agency, a post that he's held since February of 2007. So please join me then in welcoming both of them. I actually wanted to start with you, Mr. Ciaccia. Many of us are completely, as I mentioned earlier, completely unaware of where our water comes from, what it takes to get to us, and where it goes. And this has changed a lot over the years. So I was wondering if you could talk to us a little bit about where that water comes from, where it goes, and who's responsible for it, and how that history has evolved.
Great. Well, thank you, for setting up just how important water is to us personally and to our region. Most of the water here in our region, and I say most, the vast majority of the water is drawn from Lake Erie. There are a couple communities that do draw off of rivers, but it's pretty insignificant. The city started drawing water out of Lake Erie in the 1800s, and they drew raw water directly from the lake and distributed it to the customers, generally mostly in the downtown and west side areas of Cleveland. And they had high instances of typhoid fever back in them days, so they quickly realized that they had to disinfect the water, and chlorine was introduced sometime later. And on the wastewater side of things, their idea of wastewater management in them days was to build a pipe from the downtown area and send it by gravity out to near the Euclid Beach area and just let it flow into the lake. And so that was the early 1800s, early 1900s. It wasn't very sophisticated whatsoever. Then in the 1920s, you started seeing the water treatment plants start to be built, two of them, the Baldwin and the Garrett Morgan, which is now the Garrett Morgan water treatment plant, was built, and then the wastewater facilities were also built in them time periods to get more sophisticated treatment of all the water that we're distributing to our customers and the water that we're taking away from the customers and putting back into the environment. In the 1950s, two other water plants were built because the suburbs were starting to sprawl out, and those were brought online. And I think it's significant because a lot of people wonder, well, why aren't we like Columbus, where we're annexing and what have you? Well, that horse ran out of the barn many years ago when the suburbs started building, and that's hence why these other treatment plants were built to start capturing the sprawl out in the suburbs. Along with those plants, just miles and miles and miles of pipe, both drinking water and